Welcome, everybody, back to the Financial Advisors Workshop. We are fortunate today to have Josh Patrick with us. And Josh is a fee-only advisor, and he runs basically the company is a sustainable business. He's worked with hundreds of businesses in all industries, specializing in blue collar. That's going to be interesting to hear about, Josh. And the sustainable business breaks down the exact framework that he has used to grow his self-sufficient organizations for over 40 years, passionate about helping business owners create extraordinary value with their companies and their lives. So welcome to the podcast, Josh Patrick.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, good. Well, we were having a nice little discussion in the beginning, and I know you're also a podcaster. You host the Cracking the Cash Flow Code podcast. And how is that still a robust effort? Are you still doing that in a big way?
We still do that. We've got 354 episodes we've done.
Oh boy! Wow.
We're recorded through May, so I guess I'm still doing it.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're still doing it in a big way. Wow. And you're a CFP, and you're a CHFC, and you've got every other CLU and a lot of other credentials. And I know you're a blogger for the New York Times as well. You've been in Forbes, Huffington Post, so you've got quite a media experience. Tell us about your practice, Josh. You have about 90 million under management, I understand, and a lot of other things going on the side.
Yeah, we've got three folks in our firm, and our wealth management firm is Stage 2 Planning, the consulting company of a sustainable business. And, the two other folks in the firm, they work with pre-retirees, retirees. One of our folks in the firm works with women in transition, which is going through a divorce or loss of a loved one. And my specialty is working with privately held business owners on a variety of strategic activities they get involved in. My subspecialty is I work with blue collar businesses, specifically contractors in the construction world.
Okay. So that's what you mean by blue collar. It's contractors.
Yes. Blue collar is any business. My first 20 years in business, I owned a food service and vending company where we fed people in factories, which is definitely a blue collar business.
Definitely blue collar. And vending can be blue collar too. My dad was an engineer, civil engineer, and that is white collar, blue collar too. Kind of. You wear boots.
It's in the construction world.
That's right. That's great. So why are those such good prospects? Why are they such good clients for you?
Well, as people I know, I can speak their language really easily. My experience is I can help any private business owner create extraordinary results. But if I go in the marketplace and say I can do that, nobody believes me. So I had to put a stake in the sand someplace. And I've worked with a bunch of contractors over the years. We've gotten really good results with them. So I said, okay, that's where I'm going to put my stake in the sand. I'm going to say to the world that my specialty is working with contractors and subcontractors. Now, we probably should have a short conversation about niches, because I'm a nicheaholic. And the truth is, if you say this is a niche, it doesn't prevent you from working outside your niche if somebody wants to work with you. It's just how you present yourself to the world. So I've decided I present myself to the world in the world of blue collar business. When I write about it, I write about it. When I podcast about blue collar. The two books I've written are about a blue collar manufacturing company. And specifically, blue collar businesses all have very similar issues.
So what kind of issues do they have?
Well, the owner has usually not been very good at delegating. They don't know how to delegate the business off. It gets stuck at 5 to 10 employees. And the reason it gets stuck at 5 to 10 employees is because they don't trust their people well enough to go out and do stuff and make a few mistakes. They believe that if their employees make a mistake, the world comes to an end. And if they make a mistake, they can fix it. Well, the truth is their employees are going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes, but rarely does an employee ever make a mistake that could put you out of business.
Right. That's right. So part of your role is to help employers understand how to let your people grow and make mistakes and build from there.
Yeah, I mean, we help them develop dashboards. blue collar businesses almost never have dashboards. And if they do have a dashboard, it's a bunch of historical numbers about what happened on their P&L and balance sheet, which is relatively useless when it comes to seeing what's going to happen in your business 90 days down the road. We have a methodology we help them install called Scrum and the theory of constraints, and help them figure out which strategy to use at the right time and how to use it. We help people have a hiring system that's simple. All the stuff that we do with people has to be simple and has to take no more than 5% of the time of the owner, because they just don't have any time. They're too busy doing stuff. And it's great to say you should work on your business. And in a blue collar world, you don't say, yeah. We could talk about that after I get out of my truck. So you have to realize that these folks have very, very, very limited time, and you can't expect them to spend 8 hours a week working on this stuff because they just never do it. If I can get an hour and a half, 2 hours a week, we're going to get some pretty extraordinary results. And over time, they're going to go from 2 hours a week or 1 hour a week to 4 hours a week. And then they get up to a day. And, after a couple of years, half their time is working strategically, half their time is working tactically. And after 5 years, 90% of the time is strategic, 10% is tactical.
So I'm going to guess here, Josh, that of the business owners that you work with, and you approach them as a financial advisor, and then you help them as a consultant, do they have any resistance to doing financial investing, IRAs, 401ks, things like that? Is there resistance because of the nature of the business?
There can be. A lot of times what we've done with people is that, we have a tool we call the 4 boxes of financial independence. And it's a little thing I developed where I take a yellow pad out and I draw 4 boxes on it. One's the business, one's investment real estate, one's a retirement plan, one's other investments. And too many business owners think they're going to sell their business right off into the sunset and retire. So I use this tool to disabuse them of that idea. And once I do that, then they'll say, okay, what can I do? And one of the things we talk about a lot is called pre-funding your retirement. In other words, using the cash flow of your business today so you can afford to retire tomorrow. Now, what I've learned with blue-collar business owners is they generally don't get serious about retirement planning until they're at least 50 years old, sometimes 55. And if their business has less than 25 people, which many of them do, and they have significant cash flow and they can carve some of that off, which many of them do, then we can use what's called a hybrid plan, which is a 401k combined with a profit sharing plan, combined with a cash balance plan. And the question we ask is, no rules. What do you want to put away for retirement? And we'll often get between $100,000 and $200,000 a year. The owner saves in their account, and the cost is about 10% of that for the rest of their employees.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, that's a great thing for them to do. And what kind of investments do they do then? Does their position in the world, like as blue collar leaders, change how they invest, or is it pretty standard 401k?
Pretty standard stuff. I mean, I'm a bucket guy. When I do investing, I say over the next 5 to 10 years, what's your need for cash going to be? And the lower the need the cash is going to be, the higher the percentage of stocks there are in the portfolio. I'm not a 60-40 fan, although often portfolios tend to be 60-40. But when we get close to retirement, we go with 3 years worth of cash, 5 to 7 years worth of fixed income, depending on how conservative they are, and everything else goes into equities. It's a way easier way to explain investments to these folks, or anybody for that matter. And it's easy to understand. One of my core values is simplicity. And our clarifying statement around that is we take the complicated and make it simple. Too often, people in our industry keep talking to folks who own businesses using industry jargon, and that just doesn't work.
Yes.
So if I can make it simple and I can make it understandable, we're going to do that. We don't do sample stuff. I went down the hedge fund road and the tactical investing road and all that kind of good, happy hoo-ha. And it works for a while, and then all the stuff stops working. The only thing I've seen that works for a really long period of time is stocks, fixed income, and cash allocated in the appropriate buckets. That way it works. If we have a down market, I've got 3 years of cash and 5 to 7 years of fixed income, and we're not going to run through that before the market starts going back up again, or we never have anyhow. Doesn't mean it can't happen in the future.
I would say never, but the history has shown, The
history has shown that it has never happened in the past, so I can be reasonably sure that it's a reasonably good strategy.
Yes. Well, and you talk about simplicity, and I think the simplicity aspect is really important. And when you deal with highfalutin clients with and you talk MBA talk, many people glaze over there too. So we're all.
I don't care how sophisticated somebody is. You start talking about alpha, beta, gamma, and modern portfolio theory. They don't get it. They just want. I mean, in fact, even comparing your returns to the indexes is a waste of time, in my opinion. The idea is I need dollars to spend when I get to a certain point in my life. How am I going to get there? And once I get there, how do I protect it?
Mm-hmm. So do you find
it doesn't need to be complicated?
And Josh, do you find that this cohort of clients that you have is a pretty sticky bunch? I mean, they stay with you. You don't lose many of them, right? Because they.
That would be I don't have any clients because I'm old and I'm sort of doing what I call a wind down strategy.
Yeah.
But the clients I've had for 10, 15 years, longer.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. So how did you get started with this group to begin with? Was it a natural evolution of how you grew up and where you grew up? Or how did that all work out?
You mean my firm?
Yeah. So when you started your firm and you decided to go into the blue collar businessman world, how did that develop?
My first 2 years in the business was with a national, very large insurance company. And they would go out there and say to us go get 15 minutes with a business owner when you said you want to work with business owners. And I used to say all the time, I can't get out of the guy's office in less than an hour and a half. What's this 15-minute stuff? Mm-hmm. And the reason was my method of working with people is what I call the Socratic method of management, which means I ask questions. And if you give a business owner a chance to talk about themselves and how their business works and what's unique about them, you can't shut them up.
Yes.
So I would go and just ask questions. Now, my natural market is business owners because I owned an operating company for 20 years. Right. I was in the food service and vending business. We fed people who worked in factories. Mm-hmm. I knew those guys. I knew what their issues were. And I didn't go and say, here's your issue. I went in and say, what do you need help with?
What's your issue?
Yeah. And they would tell me what scratch they needed to have itched.
Right.
And if you're working with business, I think it's probably true with everybody, but specifically business owners, if you don't scratch the itch, you never get a chance to work on what you know is important for them. So you have to help them solve the problem that they decided they wanted to talk to you about. If somebody makes an appointment with you, there's a reason they want to talk to you. And your job when you walk in the door is saying, what is it this person really wants to have solved? And if you have the ability, you help them solve it. And if you don't, you find somebody who can help them.
Fascinating. So when you approach a new family or you get an appointment with a new entrepreneur, whether it be a man or a woman in the blue collar world, what are they doing before they come to you? Do they have another advisor, or are you kind of training them to do the new things that you suggest?
Typically, I would say it's about 50-50. 50% of the time, they've never worked with a coach. 50% of the time, they've worked with a coach and they've had various results.
Right.
One of the things that I found this really interesting. I was talking to a prospect probably about 6 weeks ago. And after we were talking for about 25 minutes, I helped her discover a whole bunch of stuff she could work on. She said to me, well, what kind of deliverables do you have? And I sort of stopped and I said, well, we really don't do deliverables. We do results. And she wanted deliverables, so I wasn't a good match for her, which is, sort of too bad because I could have helped her in the first 60 days triple her profits.
Yeah.
I mean, there was stuff that was just laying out there. It was just completely obvious. And frankly, I don't write reports. I use mind maps. I use one-page infographics. I, use legal pads. I can't remember the last time I actually printed a financial plan. We do financial plans. We do it with the client. We do it collaboratively. They tell me what changes they want to make, and they own it. Mm-hmm. Now, a financial plan, in my opinion, is completely useless, but the financial planning process is really valuable because a plan is dead before you even printed the darn thing.
Right.
But the planning process, which is an ongoing review and say, what are the strategies we need to do to get to where we want to go, is important. I mean, this is something that's outside the blue collar world, but I ask people all the time in our industry, what's the most valuable asset most of your customers have? Mm-hmm. And they give me all sorts of answers, but the answer really is the ability to earn money at a job.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I, as a financial planner, one of my jobs, and I help our other folks in our firm, I coach them on this, is if we can help our clients figure out when it's time to change jobs, or how to get a headhunter to help them change a job, or how to approach the job they have right now and make more money, or when it's time to move on, we're doing probably the most valuable thing that we can possibly do for our clients when it comes to creating wealth on the technical side. Now, there's a personal side also, which is where, one of my certifications, I'm a certified financial transitionist, which is Susan Bradley's program over at the Financial Transitionist Institute. And the truth is there's two sides to an engagement. We have the technical side, which is all about the money. And then we have the personal side, which is all about living your life and making it through major transitions we have in our life. And if you're going to be really good, and one of the things I keep talking about, in fact, I just did a video on this morning, is on expertise versus the visionary. If you're an expert, you are going to be put out of business by AI. If you're a visionary, you're not. Robo-advisors. That's an expert sort of activity.
Sure.
But if I can help you make it through the transitions in your life successfully, that's a visionary activity. That's something AI is not going to be able to do. You're not going to put things in a computer and out comes how you should live your life, because there's too many changes. The area of going through passage, which is stage 3 of a transition, is sloppy.
Yeah.
You go up, you go down, you go left, you go right, you go backwards, you go forwards, you go forwards, you go backwards. And a computer program is not going to help you do that. An algorithm can't help you do that. You need a human being who's been trained and has gone past expertise into the world of the visionary. Mm-hmm. I always encourage people, I say, visionary is the blue water, expertise is the red water. Get out of the red water.
I always like to say, Josh, there's math, and then there's how we feel about
it. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's math is just math. It's how does it fit in our life? Sounds like you have a great program for that. And you mentioned earlier, that certain people have never worked with a coach. Just how you see your role, and are we investors? Yes, but we're also coaches to help people benefit from the work that we do. We have to coach them in how to think about it and how to feel about it and how to get the most out of the investing work.
Yeah, so how often have you told a client, hey, you need to spend more money? Yeah. And trying to coach them into spending more money.
Right.
And coaching them, people who develop significant wealth, if you read The Millionaire Next Door, basically do it by saving nickels and dimes. Mm-hmm. And they finally get to the point where they have a few $1 million and they could start spending quarters and dollars. They still want to spend nickels and dimes.
Right. Help them. You have to help lead them to do that, right?
Yeah. You can now afford to do this. Go out and do it. Take that $30,000 vacation that you've always talked about for the last 15 years. You can now afford it. Do it.
Now you can afford to do it. You can enjoy it. Oh, that's great. Well, Josh, this has been a great conversation. I look forward to learning more and kind of seeing your progression and your progression more into consulting as things go on. And any parting thoughts for our listeners today about how you built your business, or any parting words you want to leave with everyone?
Yeah. Ask 8 times the amount of questions of telling. The more questions you ask, the more effective you'll be.
Ask lots of questions.
Ask lots of questions.
I think that's a great mantra. That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Josh, for being with us today on the Financial Advisors Workshop. We'll leave it there, and hopefully we can do a follow-up in the fall and see what's changed, how things are going. And it's really an interesting model working with businessmen that normally the industry isn't targeting. They're all looking for the billionaires and the millionaires, and there's a lot of money in those blue-collar businesses, aren't there?
You'll be surprised. I mean, I have a client who has 38 employees, and they make $1.8 million a year.
Wow. Yeah,
and that's not unusual.
The millionaire next door drives a pickup truck, right?
That's right.
That's right. Well, great. Well, good. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Josh, for being with us today. We appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for being with us on the Financial Advisors Workshop.